Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, everybody. So just opening up the room and starting the morning with all of you. So thank you for being here on a Saturday morning. Good morning, Sarah. I can see some beautiful messages coming into the chat box there. Good morning, Agnes. Let me know where you're all from. And let's see if we can warm up the panel across the world. And firstly, I want to say my apologies because I live in the middle of the countryside and they are collecting the hazelnuts. I'm not sure if you can hear the machine outside, but they are heavily into the hazelnut collection at the moment. So my apologies that there is a noise in the background. Welcome, welcome. I see some beautiful faces and I see that we are spanning the earth. So Virginia, I dread to think what time it is for you in the US. Must be like 1 or 2 in the morning, I guess.
It's 3:30.
What time is it, Virginia?
It's 3:30 and it's early enough for me to leave my camera off.
Goodness, definitely. Wow. But Albania, Lebanon, Poland, Malaysia. Wow, fantastic. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. So I would like to make this a little bit interactive. So towards the end, I'll be getting you to jump in. What I propose to do, how many of you really know about neurolanguage coaching? I can see some of my coaches, so I know that hopefully all of you do. And what I propose is just to take you through a little bit of an explanation first. And then towards the end, we're going to go into the impact. And we've recently done a study, and I'm going to be presenting a little bit the results from that study. And then we'll go into those questions and finding out what all of you would like to know. And I can see some more coaches coming in. Hi, good morning, all of you. Thank you for being here. So let me just share my screen. And let's get the slides going. Now, you know, I do think that we are in a very strong transition in education. And I think the transition is not coming from the establishments, it's not coming from the systems, it's coming from you. It's coming from us, the educators, definitely. And I think it's a worldwide phenomenon. I think all across the world, we, the educators, want the systems to change. And I think we're doing that because the learners are changing. And we are adapting to the learners of today, whether they're children, teenagers, adults, business people, privates, whoever, we are the ones that are adapting to them because we see that obviously learners are changing, our brains are changing, life has changed. And especially now post-pandemic, you know, we really are seeing that a lot of children now having a lot of difficulty getting back to schools, a lot of trauma that we're dealing with, still a lot of traumas in the world, like the war, financial situations, people are very much struggling. And I think educators, we are almost there as the bridge to parents and children and teenagers. And this is the reason that everything is starting to change. So I started Neurolanguage Coaching about 10 years ago now. This year we are celebrating the 10th year. I started in 2012. Definitely one of the first to bring out this bridge of neuroscience and coaching into the language learning process. 10 years down the line, we see a lot of people now coming in with coaching, professional coaching, trying to bring that into the learning process. We are 10 years down the line with this. So we have a lot of experience and we're getting a lot of impact being demonstrated with the coaches and now with the studies as well. So let's just have a quick look at what's the reason that we're bringing in the neuroscience. You know, when I started 10 years ago talking about the neuroscience and bringing this in, there was a lot of questioning, why am I doing this? What's the reason for this? And this beautiful study, 2019, really demonstrates that when we start to bring in neuroscientific principles, neuroscientific research, information about the brain to our learners, it does have impact. And the impact leads to better performance, better outcomes, and better motivation. And can I say that, you know, and I think my coaches would agree with me, that it's not only the motivation of the learner, it's also the motivation of the educator that changes when you come into a process that is more tailor-made and tailored to the brain. Absolutely. I have to say this is one of my favorite pieces of research. So if you do have the chance, do have a look at that. And we see that when you talk about the brain with learners, when you get the learners to start to come into metacognition, metacognition means observation of self, discovery of self. And as a professional coach, we are constantly bringing the mirror to the learner. We're constantly helping them, stimulating them, provoking them to understand more about how they learn. And we see this particular study demonstrates that it's not only children that benefit from this, but also adults and also the disadvantaged and struggling learners. For me, it's absolutely key that we as educators firstly understand the basics about the brain. I'm not saying that we should be neuroscientists, but we should understand the basics about the brain, how it learns, how it functions, how it reacts. And we should be able to share that with our learners, talk about the brain with the learners, discover with the learners, help them to come into learner autonomy and understanding of self. Now, we're just going to have a little look at, you know, implementing metacognition means many different things. And we're going to explore each of these points. Now, the first point is we become metacognitive first. We learn how to change the way that we communicate. We communicate in a very brain-friendly way. Firstly, we understand the power of the words that we're using, the positivity that we're using, the feedback that we're using. We understand how to go into compassion, empathy, and really focus conversations into finding solutions with a very calm, coaching presence. And that means coaching competencies, and we'll be talking about those later. And this is the key. How we communicate can really impact the learning process. Now, I'm working with a group at the moment of teachers. And the other day, one of them was sharing with me, she's learning a language at the moment with a teacher. And the teacher actually said something that triggered her enormously. The teacher said, you need to start speaking more. And she recognized that that did something to her. It totally connected her back to a memory at school when they told her the same. And literally she was having the same reaction as when she was a little girl at school. Now that teacher had no idea that that little statement disrupted that learning process so much. And this is where constantly we must be aware of everything that we're saying. And we really must be aware and sensitive to the impact that it's having. Now, in that particular situation, If I had said something like that and I noticed and sensed that something was happening, I would be checking in with my learner, but I would do it in a totally different way. I would really be asking my learner, what can we do to get you talking a little bit more here? What's going to help you to feel safe to start talking in this new language? How can I help you to do that? What do you need to be able to start talking? Instead of the statement, you need to. Now, many of you, after today, when you get back into your learning process with your learners, I'd really like you to observe these types of statements. How many times are you saying you should, you need to, you ought to, you have to, you must? And how could you change those? And also, how could you change the directives? No more directives. So instead of repeat, say, listen, even with a please in front of it, please listen, is still a directive. Downtoning the directive into permission questions. May I ask you to repeat that? Could you possibly say that again? How about we move on to this? And I'd love you to notice the difference. So the way that we communicate is absolutely key. And what we are doing is we're trying to keep our learners' limbic region calm. In particular, the amygdala. We're trying to keep them in a very calm learning state. You know, when any of us go into a fight or flight, the amygdala is aroused, the messaging to the survival brain kicks in, the survival brain then triggers this full body response, fight, flight, or freeze. And if we've got a learner in that particular state, they are not going to learn, full stop. And we constantly have to be calming them and asking the right questions and choosing the right words. Secondly, we need to talk about the brain. Now, as I said earlier, this isn't about being a neuroscientist, everybody, but it is about having a basic understanding and being able to share with the learner about neuroplasticity, about how the brain can change, about lifelong learning, about neurogenesis, about how the brain learns when we're children and how it changes about the age of 7 or 8, about brain waves. Those of you who know me, you know that I'm fascinated with brain waves and brain states. How do we get them into a beta, let's say, predominant brainwave where they are rational, analytically thinking, or how do we get them in the flow, the alpha state? And the flow is what they call the genius learning state. How do we talk about the conscious learning, the subconscious learning, which is explicit, implicit learning? How do we go into the question of learning styles, multiple intelligences? All of these are things that we need to be addressing and sharing with our learner. And also talking about this fight or flight state. When people understand what is happening to them, they start to become calmer. Out of curiosity, just out of curiosity, how many of you have ever had a panic attack in your life? By the way, the psychologists say that 90% of the population will have a panic attack at some point in their life. Definitely I have. I can see some people nodding here. Now, when that happened to you, if you had understood fully what was happening, it would have totally changed those moments for you. And this is what happens in a learning environment. When you've got a learner shutting down, blocking, they don't know what's happening. They think it's them, only them. Now, if we can start talking to them, may I share with you? Can I share that I'm noticing that, there's a little bit of a shutting down here? May we talk about it? Because sometimes the brain connects into maybe memories, or the brain brings in this message and pushes it into a fight or flight. And when that happens, prefrontal cortex, hippocampus are not receiving the resources that they need. Now, many times I explain very simple terms. Learning, language learning as well, is a front to back process. Prefrontal cortex, working memory, short-term memory. This is the first point of call for learning. And as we learn something, it's going deeper and deeper into the memory, into the storage, if you like, into the subconscious. Language fluency is at the back in the cerebellum. Now, I always say it's a front to back. So if you are calm, you've got that beautiful flow front to back. As soon as something happens and you're triggered and you lose the calm, the midbrain, the emotional brain, brings up the gate. And it's almost like that stops the front to back flow. Now, I don't know about all of you, but I still get a fight or flight with languages. If I'm feeling uncomfortable, if I'm stopped by the police, that's when I normally have the worst fight or flight on earth. And I will never forget some years ago in France, in the south of France, I was racing to the airport to get a plane. And I was stopped by the police and I was late. I was really, and that was the last thing I needed. And it was a police lady. And she stopped me. And the first thing she said, because I had a German car in those days, the first thing she said was, "Parlez-vous français?" And I kind of went, "Oui." But that was it. My brain was going to that fight or flight. And I could feel it. And I could feel I was stuttering. I could hardly speak. I normally can speak French fairly well. Anyway, she let me go. She just checked my papers, let me go, no problem. The funny thing, everybody, is I had to go to the petrol station. And my car is petrol and gas, GPO. And I was trying to put the gas into the car and it wouldn't work. It wouldn't work and it wouldn't work. And remember, I was trying to get a plane. I was running to the airport. I was racing. I ran into the petrol station and said, "Please, somebody help me." And this gentleman came out and very, very easily and quickly lifted off the gas, put it in the car with no problem. And that's when I realized that the whole scene with the police lady had shut down my brain. And I was putting the petrol into the gas part instead of the gas pump into the gas part. And it made me laugh because it made me realize that I literally shut down. I wasn't rationalizing, I wasn't analyzing, I was in that panic state still minutes after speaking to that police lady. And this is what happens. Now, if I've got a learner, I will sit in front of my learner and explain and share. This is what's happening to the brain. Can I check? Is this what's happening to you? Okay, so if this is the case, what is the trigger? What's created this shutdown? How can I avoid it? What can I do so that you never have this again? And sharing this helps learners to calm down. And it helps me to understand my learner. So just to consolidate, this is what's happening. We've got adrenaline, cortisol flowing, we've got hippocampus, prefrontal cortex not receiving the resources, and we do not have effective learning happening. By the way, some research that's backing this up, this research is based on mathematics. I don't know what all of you think, but I actually think language learning can be worse than mathematics for some people. Ina, yes, there you go. Thank you for sharing that. Absolutely. Here we see mathematics, you have this prefrontal cortex shutting down, and even thinking about doing mathematics creates that arousal of the pain areas in the brain. Wow. Psychological safety in learning is primordial. If we don't have it, they're not going to learn. Also understanding about emotions. Emotions equal memories, chemistry. Everything in our brain is to do with neural connections, chemistry, neurotransmitters. And if we can understand how to help them to really boost and increase dopamine in the brain, creating fun sessions, reward systems, variety, novelty, curiosity, getting them into a flow state. All of this is going to impact the learning. So the next step is stimulating cognitive skills. Well, how do we do that in language learning? We do that by really connecting in with those associations and scaffolding. And we have this phenomenal research from 2016 demonstrating that when we learn a language, our brain goes to the native or pre-existing knowledge first. So the brain is trying to springboard, scaffold. And in neurolanguage coaching, we are constantly provoking. I always say to my coaches, we are provocateur par excellence. And I can see Olivier is smiling there. Yes, I know you are one of our provocateurs. Now, you know, this doesn't mean that we are always speaking native to our learners. Not at all. We are provoking the connections. How is this in your language? How is it different? How is it similar? Where are the differences? What's the reason that it's different? And we're trying to help them to create these bridges and associate. Can I share that's how we learn as children? When we're learning our first language, our native language, that's how we learn, by connecting and associating. Just to make all of you smile, one of my favorite mistakes as a child was I brang it. And many little English children make that mistake, because for us, ring, rang, rung, bring, brang, brung. Why not? But there you can see the beautiful example of how children pattern, how we as adults pattern things out. That's what our brain does. Our brain is a patterning machine. And if we can help our learners to pattern and connect, they're going to do it by themselves. But they need the provocation. And we come back to this word, provocateur. With the neuroscience as well, what we're doing is we're really helping them to provoke and promote learner autonomy. You know, I always think that the Victorian age is to blame for the philosophy of teaching that we have today. If we go to the Greek times, the philosophy of Greece, ancient Greek, if we go back to Socrates, it was totally different then. The Socratic way was always about stimulating, involving, getting them to speak. And from the Victorian age onwards, it turned totally the other way. The teacher speaks, the learner doesn't. And we're now moving away from this. we're moving back to the Socratic approach, where we want them to do it, them to be the protagonist, the real main actor here. Now, this means that we have to stop doing it. And from the neuroscience, we know to learn something, you have to do it. To learn something, they have to do it. And we have to stop doing it for them. And this is where learner autonomy is key. Now, I know from my experience, and I know that a lot of the coaches have this experience, you know, sometimes we ask our learners, okay, how do you want to do this? And the answer is, you're the teacher, you tell me. So now we have to ping pong that back and say, well, yes, I am the teacher or the trainer or the coach or whatever you want me to be. But the key is finding out how you want to do this, because every brain is different. Everybody is different. Actually, everybody potentially learns in a different way. And what I need to know is how you learn. To find out how to have more effective, efficient, and faster learning processes for you. Now, basic functioning of brain is the same for everybody. But each and every one of us has a unique brain. By the way, we have a brain print that is unique. You know, we have fingerprints, we have iris prints. We also have a brain print that is unique to each and every one of us. And the neuroscientists say that a third of our brain is genetic and 2/3 what we have put in throughout our lives. Knowledge, experience, etc. Now, if you just think about that for 1 second, that really means that your genetic input, your lifelong input is totally different to mine. You, each and every one of you, may have a totally different perspective on life, a different way of receiving and interpreting information. And that means for me as an educator, every single person sitting in front of me is different. I do think one of the major challenges is how we deal with that in schools, with groups of 30 children. How many of you are in schools with big groups of kiddies? Munira, yes, to travel as well. I think we'll be opening doors, and Olivia, I think, yes, they're working on these sort of door opening devices where we open with our brain print. Yes, yeah. How many of you are actually working in schools with big kiddies groups? Any of you? I'm hoping that, you know, over the next years, we're really going to be coming in with more and more of the NeuroHeart education training courses for teachers in schools, where we're trying to help teachers to come into smaller groups, into diversifying activities, so that they are trying to connect in and matching children with different activities in different ways, and helping children to develop their uniqueness in life. And that's something that we will be really expanding over the next year with this NeuroHeart educational coaches. Munira, you're saying that you're in pre-university, yeah, and you have large groups of students. And again, it could be interesting how to address a large group, and really sitting with them right at the beginning and trying to find out, okay, as a group, how do you want us to move forwards? Because you're all different. What can help one of you may not help another. So how can we brainstorm how to help each other here? And trying to see if you can get groups interconnecting and becoming teams, learning teams. How beautiful would that be if you can get a learning team as your learning group? So this is more or less everything that we are bringing into neurolanguage coaching from the neuroscience. Now, we also bring in professional coaching. You know, a lot of the time we hear about coaching. It really is becoming the trend, the default in everything that we're doing. We've got a lot of professionals, financial professionals, lawyers, business people coming into being coaches. And I think one of the main images that everybody has is the sports coach, that person who is there telling you, helping you, encouraging you, pushing you, etc. Now, when you actually think about professional coaching, and when I say professional coaching, let's just clarify here as well. There are many different approaches to coaching. On the one side, you may have educational coaching, and you have universities, learning establishments bringing out modules on coaching. You've got master's degrees with coaching modules. This is what coaching is about. On the other side, you have the institutions like the International Coaching Federation, which are very focused on life and business coaching in practice. And these institutions are setting out the guidelines, the standards, and the ethics for professional coaching practices. Not academic, but actually implementing professional coaching. And it's totally different. So the educational coaching world seems to be very different to the International Coach Federation world. In the end, professional coaching is about accreditations. It's about training. It's not about just calling yourself a coach. On the other side, there's nothing wrong with that. Anybody can call themselves a coach because it is an unregulated business. So anybody can say I'm a coach, but the question is whether there is professional coaching training behind it. Now, when you start to come into professional coaching training, you know, it's not easy to be a coach. I know there are quite a few of my neurolanguage coaches in the audience. Maybe you can just share in the chat box whether it's easy or not easy to be a coach, a professional coach. Just a little bit of feedback in there, because it really does require a lot of training, a lot of patience. Oh, Olivia, you're past the toddler phase. Definitely, you're much more than a toddler. Now, when we come into ICF competences, you know, we are looking at powerful questions, active listening. We're looking at coaching competences, coaching presence. We're looking at how to signpost, reformulate. Leslie, you're saying it's not easy. It's not, but you know, it is. And by the way, I can also share, I also felt for many, many years that imposter syndrome. When you come into coaching at the beginning, it is not easy at all. Definitely. And Maria Michael, great to see you, by the way. Yeah, it's not easy. And Karen, yeah, it is worth it. It really does change us first. We transform and then they transform with us. But it's not easy. I was sharing with one of my groups, I think it took me a couple of years back in 2004 to 2006 to stop asking closed questions. That was my biggest challenge back then, to actually understand the types of questions I was asking and the impact the questions have. So it's also about understanding the neuroscience behind coaching. And can I share, there's a lot of information about the impact of coaching on the brain, on learning. We've got Richard Boyatzis, who is one of the phenomenal coaches connecting neuroscience and coaching. We've got David Rock connecting neuroscience and coaching. You know, you've got a lot of them who are seeing the impacts. Now, Boyatsis actually did a lot of research on the impact on the coachee's brain, whether we are speaking with vision, so coaching with vision, or whether we are coaching in problems. And according to how we communicate, whether we're pushing them to vision or whether we're getting them to talk about the problem, actually has an impact on the brain. And when we speak and talk from a coaching perspective with personal vision and compassion, it was activating in the MRI scan the brain regions connected to motivation, connected to self-confidence, connected to solution finding, and connected to that sort of feeling of self-empowerment. And that was evident in the brain scans, as opposed to when they were coaching around a problem and they were always in the problem, that was really triggering the fight or flight systems constantly. So again, we come back to how we communicate as coaches and how we can steer and manage those coaching conversations. And just to say that, you know, when you bring professional coaching into learning, we're also bringing in the structure. That means the goal setting, the action setting, but we're doing it from the perspective that our learners set their own goals and set their own actions. I know there are many, many teachers who say to me, we already do that. We already set goals, but it's normally the teacher setting the goals. The way that we do it in neurolanguage coaching, we do it with the reverse psychology. They are setting their own goals. And we know from the research that when people set their own goals, they set their own learning paths, they're much more likely to achieve those goals and have the success and move forward. Goal setting, action setting must come from the learner. How do we do that in language learning when our learners know nothing about languages? Ah, that's our secret. But we definitely do it. Now, let's just come into a different focus here. Let's come into the impact. You know, I always say that we are faced with a dichotomy. We're faced with two spectrums here, two ends of the spectrum. Teaching on the one side, coaching on the other side. Teaching is directive, teacher-focused, whereas coaching is non-directive. It's almost like the answer is waiting to be discovered. How do we bridge that? And I think this is the eternal quest for us as neurolanguage coaches. And we know how to bridge this because teaching is actually about certainty. And in neurolanguage coaching, we have certainty. We discover the certainty with the coaching. We create a personalized roadmap, pathway, framework for that learner or group of learners. That's the certainty. But then when we are together with the learner, we are bringing in the spontaneity and the coaching presence. And we're dancing with the learner in the moment. That's how we bridge this dichotomy. And coaching presence is really about sitting with that learner every second, following, dancing, but even having the framework in the background. We can do both. So this is the what I call the reconciliation of the dichotomy. It really is. And we are bridging bridging the neuroscience, we're bringing that into the classroom. And we're creating the new educators of today, you know, the neuro-heart educators. It really is this brain-heart coherence. Neurolanguage coaches are part of this neuro-heart education. And it is about having that professional coaching training, having an accreditation. It is about knowing the science. It is about understanding how to bring that into the topic, whether it's language learning, whether it's physics, history, science, whatever it is. It's about bringing the neuroscience, the neuropsychology, the emotional intelligence, and the coaching into the process. And that way we really are bringing in this heart, brain, intuition, the holistic approach to education. And if you like, you can see that we are right in the middle there. And with the neuroscience, we can add the emotional intelligence, the neuropsychology, coming in to being the bridge. And just to summarize, this is what we're bringing in. On the one side, you've got the coaching. And on the other side, you've got the neuro. So what are the impacts? Well, I'll come back to this later. You know, in 2014, we did one of our first studies. And this, in fact, is a case study with Dimitris Stepos, who is a researcher at was a researcher at the Hellenic Open University. And he really explored the differences of neurolanguage coaches and teachers, educators. And this was only 2 years after starting with neurolanguage coaching. I'm just going to see if I can get the research in the background, everybody, because I've opened various screens in the background. And I do want to sort of share with all of you the impacts of those research papers. So let me just bring this up. There it is. This paper was really interesting because he did explain a little bit what was happening with the trend and how coaching was already starting back in 2012, 14. By the way, I started in 2000. That was when I first heard language coach. When I landed in Germany and I was going to work in a school in Dortmund, and the owner of the school in Dortmund talked about language coaching. And I said to him, what is it? And he said, follow the client, follow the learner. And that was it. He didn't give any other ideas because there weren't any ideas. And that was, for me, the start of my journey into discovering and creating a concept, because it did not exist. And it took me years and years of research and practice and being with learners to crystallize the concept of neurolanguage coaching. Maria Michael, yes, it's in the library. It is in the Neurolanguage Coach library. And definitely it is worthwhile. And I may be asking Dimitris to do another one, a follow-up one, now after the 10 years. This was after the 2 or 3 years. Now, the interesting thing was he was profiling what neurolanguage coaches, who they were. And the interesting thing is he came into the findings and discussions of who were neurolanguage coaches. And it was very much people that were in their midlife. So neurolanguage coaches, the majority of us are middle-aged. And also with that feeling of wanting to give back in the world. that is the profile of the neurolanguage coaches that came out in those years. And I actually think that is the most beautiful profile of each and every one of us, because I think what I have discovered is that people taking this course with me and people becoming neurolanguage coaches are the ones who want to change the world and to bring back a lot of what they have received, what they want to bring out as good in the world. So yes, they range between 35 and 55. There seems to be various backgrounds to each and every one of them. And they express their ambition to bring out the best functionality of their clients, wanting the best, wanting to make a change. So I would say this is really research to have a look at, because it demonstrates the character and the beauty behind all of the neurolanguage coaches worldwide, definitely. Now, last year, we had another really impacting paper. And this was a lady in Tarragona, Emma Arrasa. It is in Catalan, but we translated it into English. If any of you are interested, we can send you that as a PDF. So we have it as a PDF document. If you want, we can send that to you. Now, the interesting thing is she did interview a lot of neurolanguage coaches. And I'm just seeing if I can get the paper in the background. And again, this is in the Neurolanguage Coach library, everybody. If you're a neurolanguage coach, it is also in the library. Agnes, what we might do then, I might ask Gary to include, we send all of you a recording of this. When we send the recording, we'll probably send in that PDF with that recording, so that after you've watched the webinar, you get that. Now, you can see here, she interviewed the neurolanguage coaches and really looked at the impact that they had and that the effect that they were having. And there you can see learning is more meaningful, effective results, more motivating, unblock the learning, more effective than the traditional. Coachee is aware of his or her learning process. And each of those questions, you can see the results. Now, the one that is the lowest, the not aware, that is actually not aware of neurolanguage coaching. Because we are still pioneering, we're still getting out there in the world, that was the one that came back with people don't know about it, because we're still in the pioneering stages. And then the table of competences, the coaching competences, really gave such amazing results. So already we're seeing that there is a lot of impact. So she analyzed, and there were a lot of percentages that were very, very high there, showing the impact that the neurolanguage coaches are having on the learning. Now, recently, this year, we did another study. And this particular study is something that we did in a company, and it's a pilot study. And we had, at the beginning, 8 learners, all between B1 and B2 in this company. 12 weeks meant they had 1 session per week, 12 sessions over 3 months. Every single learner sat with the coach at the beginning and created their learning process, their requirements, their needs, their issues, their pain problems with the language. They had level tests pre and post. They had questionnaires pre and post, and they were measured with their results. And what we actually saw was significant impact just after 12 weeks. Now, that was the initial study. Since then, we now have 8 more learners with our coaches, and we will be adding to this study as we move forwards with it, with more and more people coming into this let's say, demonstration of results. Now, over the next weeks, we will be publishing this study. And I just want to get it in the background a minute. Just let me see if I can find it on my computer, and then I will take you through it. There we go. Now, the actual analysis of the results, we did actually get a statistician to check out the results for us. And there we see, as a group, we had and demonstrated a significant impact. I put my hands up because I'm not a statistician, so I really don't understand this creation of statistics here that they do. But the analysis of the results did come back with a significant impact. Now, when we went into sort of the individuals, we also did managers' assessment of their impact. So this is the managers reporting on the differences that they saw in their learners in 3 months. And here you can see it was phenomenal. The majority of answers are that there was a high or very high impact. Just from 3 weeks, just from 3 months. They saw them moving more into contributing in meetings, arguing and discussing, more motivated to participate. You know, when I first did the interview with the managers and the learners, they were not participating in meetings, they were not contributing, they were really shy. And just after those 3 months, it totally changed. And each and every one, we have the sort of comparative tables all the way through. And we've got the pre and post. And some of them, we're seeing more confidence. We're seeing more increase in business. We've got the graphs demonstrating the difference in each case. Again, how confident do you feel? How fluency has changed. And as I say, we will be publishing this over the next weeks once we've got the go-ahead from the company that we can do this. And we will keep adding to it and adding to it. Plus, we're going to be creating an academic paper from this. So there will be that sort of putting it into the journals so that we're demonstrating the impact. And just to share with all of you, we also have at the moment an ongoing master's in Taiwan. One of our neurolanguage coaches is actively involved in her master thesis, demonstrating the impact of neurolanguage coaching in a classroom with Chinese children. And she's now in the implementation phase. And in January, February, then she'll be writing up the results. And hopefully that will be published as well by the end of the school year, the academic year, and we'll be able to also bring that out. And I believe there's another lady in Ireland who is also just waiting for her results to come back from her master's, which also was the impact of coaching into the educational processes. So we're very focused on bringing out the impact. Now, a lot of the neurolanguage coaches are sharing their feedback as well. On the website, we've got a lot of the coaches sharing how they are getting testimonials from learners. And, you know, it really starts with the transformation of us, the educator. When we transform, they transform. Personally, I think with the right understanding of learning, we can learn a language in 1 year. But that requires understanding explicit learning, implicit learning. And it requires motivation and commitment. Let me give you the example of the person who goes to live in a country, the immersion setting. If that person in the immersion setting is also adding explicit input, going to classes, learning the mechanics of the language, and you've got the explicit plus the implicit, in 1 year, that person can be up and running with that language. Now, the question for each and every one of us as educators of languages, how do we help our learner to replicate that situation in their own country? And nowadays, with technology as it is, it's possible. When I was younger and learning Spanish and French, it wasn't possible. Nowadays, with telephones that can be put in every single language, TV and Netflix and God knows what, that can be changed into languages, and really that creating that immersion setting around you in your country is possible. But you have to have the motivation and commitment to do it. And working with a coach, we really encourage and help our learners to understand explicit and implicit learning. And that, believe me, is what was the turbo boost for these learners in this study in the company. Because we sat with them and they had not only the mechanical mastery sort of goal setting when they were with the coach and the focused goals of conscious learning, but they also had that sort of implicit learning when they were not with the coach. That's the difference. Understanding how we learn a language is key. It's not just about sitting with a teacher for once a week. And the more that we can help our learners to come through this and understand it, the faster and the more efficiently and the more effectively they're going to learn. Definitely. So I'm just going to finalize with the last sort of slides, and then we'll open the stage for all of you as well to jump on and share and see what you think. We're shifting into new premises for learning. I think we're really shifting into a new educational era, and you are the ones that are the key to change and shift learning. I do want to say thank you for being here. I know it's Saturday morning. I know for some of you, like Virginia, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, it must be 4:30 now, Virginia. I'm always grateful to you for being there. We do have some courses coming up. Oh, I can see you now. Yes, Virginia. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Wow, amazing. I'm going to open the microphones in a minute. We do have some courses coming up. You know, we have 33 teacher trainers across the world. We are now starting to deliver in 12 different languages across the world. And little by little, we're rippling and rippling and rippling the concepts out quietly into the world. So there will be some in Spanish. Also, Nicole, we're looking at actually getting the course into Hebrew at some point. We have the course in Italian, French, German, Polish, Russian, Ukrainian. I'm trying to think about the languages. We will be having it in Greek next year, Turkish, also in Chinese. Virginia is our Chinese neurolanguage trainer. and Japanese as well, Arabic as well. So we're definitely starting to get this in more and more languages and more teacher trainers across the world. We also have the Neuro Heart Education course, which is about training teachers of any discipline. So not only language, but also now we're moving into bringing this to school teachers of physics, history, biology, chemistry, the same principles, bringing in the neuroscience, the neuropsychology, the emotional intelligence, and the coaching into the classroom. And I'm starting as well with face-to-face. You know, after the pandemic, we're starting now, all of us, to restart the live trainings. So I hopefully will be in London, hopefully. I think some of you know that I've actually broken my leg at the moment, so I'm a little bit unfunctional at the moment. Well, my leg, but I'm hoping in the next couple of weeks to be walking around. I'm already shuffling around, so I am standing and shuffling with my little boot. And hopefully in the next 2 weeks, I will be able to lose the boot and start shuffling with my own foot and leg. So London is in December, and Madrid with Blanca is in November. Now, we do actually have the page with all the events. There is a very special course for Ukrainian teachers at the moment as well, coming up. If you are a Ukrainian teacher, our Ukrainian trainers are offering a beautiful, very discounted course for you because of the circumstances. So if you want some more information for that, do let me know. And I can put you in touch with Vlada, Marina, and Nina, who are our Ukrainian coaches out there. And we have a discount system. So, you know, I recognize that the course is an expensive course because of the coaching element. However, it is very easy to get half price. So it is very easy to get the full discount of, I'm just moving it there, 50% off the course. Anyway, moving away from discounts, moving away from everything else. With pleasure, if anybody would like to jump on the microphone, if you are one of our coaches and you want to share the impact that you are having on your learners, please do. If anybody wants to ask any questions, and yes, Elsa, were you there in the background? Did you do the commercial break there, Elsa? I was madly trying to message Elsa as well in the background. Okay, let me see if I can unmute everybody. Let me see how to do that. And there you go. I think I've just allowed all of you to unmute. Allow to unmute. There you go. Okay, anybody like to jump on? Questions or sharing? Be shy. It's Saturday morning. Everybody's ready to go and get some coffee. Olivier, where is your coffee this morning? You've normally got this beautiful coffee cup. Oh, you're on the espresso this morning. Ah, Ina as well. Yes. And Loya with the water. Yes. Virginia. Oh, Karen, beautiful to see you as well. Yes. So Virginia, Karen, Olivier, any of you like to just share a little bit the impact that you are having on your learners? Because I know you're having a phenomenal impact. Oh, you can't unmute. Oh, let me just, there you go. Let me ask you to unmute. Ask to unmute.
That's good.
Yes, Karen.
Hi, Rachel. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I'd just like to share that. So I've been in this process now since 2021, I think. So about 18 months. And it's been transformational, as you've said. a lot for me personally. It's been just made my experience so much more enjoyable. And what I'm finding is I have to do quite a lot of work with my coachees because they're mainly British people. And I have to kind of ease them into the process because they expect a teaching environment. So I take it really slowly now and get them used to the neuroscience side and get them asking questions and being curious about their learning. But it took me a while to kind of figure out that they needed that time. It didn't just kind of appear, because they tend to get quite defensive if you go too quickly about what you're doing. So yeah, that's kind of how I'm going into the process now.
Fantastic, Karen. And yes, I think, you know, in some ways we are re-educating learners how to learn. Because before we've been spoon feeding them so much that people actually expect the teacher to do this, 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 and this. And the question there is, okay, well, how are you going to learn it if I'm doing it for you? What can we do to get you to learn this? And they always say the best way to learn something is by teaching it. We know that because we're teachers. And that's when we started to learn what we're teaching. Now, the question is, how do we get our learners to do that as well? How do we get them? You explain it back to me. You tell me. You give it to me. Let's see if you can process this. And that's when they start connecting more and more and more, and it starts sinking in more and connecting more. Virginia, yes.
Oh, good morning, everybody. Oh my gosh, yeah, I echo what Karen just said about the transformational process for myself, for all my learners. I have learners of all ages, and they're from, you know, the youngest is 6 and the oldest is, I think, 60 or something like that. But they're from India, they're from China, they're from Argentina, different places. And one thing that I have noticed for myself, I'm not historically a detailed thinker, but phenomenal, because we chunk down so we can build up. And what the brain scaffolds, the brain builds on itself. It's just a phenomenal process. You can also see what happens when they don't do that. So the approach is not magic. It won't turn a learner who isn't a learner, it won't turn a learner into one, but it will, if they do their work, then it does its work too. So it's been fantastic, really.
Yeah, Virginia, and I know you're doing some amazing things with Chinese, and I'm hoping to be your Chinese coachee soon. You know that I want to come into Chinese a bit more, but you're right. This question of breaking it down, and it does reflect everything that we do in the process of neurolanguage coaching is following the neuroscientific principles. And breaking down is one of the key principles for learning. And it's something that we've never done as teachers. And we're now understanding, how do we do it? How do we help them to do it? Definitely, it's a journey for us to bring to them. Anybody else? Karen, yes. Oh, do I have to, let me just...
That's it.
Yes.
I would just like to echo what you said about the Chinese learning. That's been a really good thing for me. I started learning Spanish, as you know, Rachel, and in the neuro-language way, and it's really helping me connect with the process more and more to my own coachees, because I understand what they're going through as a beginner. And it's been fantastic to just learn something new again. Yeah.
And it's something I was thinking about the other day, you know, language learning. If we are language educators, we need to understand how it is to learn a language. I always think that, if we are walking the talk, it's because we've been on that walk ourselves. And when you've got language educators who don't speak other languages, and I'm going to even say, maybe they've learned a language from being a bilingual child, growing up with 2 languages. That's not the same as learning a language, actually sitting there with the pain of learning a language like we have our clients doing. And that's when we know how that feels, we can connect into our learners much, much more. So Karen, fantastic that you're learning Spanish. I know you're learning French anyway, because you're over in France, but definitely and many of the neurolanguage coaches are learning other languages. And it's phenomenal. Hello, yes, good morning. Hello, hello.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello. Yes, what I realized it's about listening skills. Really, I think I thought that I was listening my student, and now I understand why sometimes my topic that I choose, especially in the university, was not working, because I was like, come on, what I'm proposing is very interesting. Yeah, for me.
Yes.
And of course, still now, sometimes I'm like, oh, you didn't listen enough. But when you really start to listen, they are telling you so much about their learning process, even if they are not really conscious about this. And this is very transforming, yes, I think.
Yes.
Yes.
And Lauren, can I say congratulations?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I was so happy. And this is very good. Thank you.
Yeah, well done. And Laura last week received her certification and accreditation. So yes, well done.
Thank
Amazing.
you.
Amazing.
Merci.
Yeah, and you're right. We often think that we're listening, but when you fully train, and we're not talking about just listening, we're talking about paralinguistics, we're talking about sensitivity, we're talking about picking up on key words that then we ask a question about. What does that mean? And we really find out from them.
Yeah.
That's when it becomes transformational. So, Anna, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Any other questions or comments from our audience? Oh, yes, Galaxy A12. Where are you? Oh, there you are. Yes. I don't know your name, so apologies for that. Oh, and just asking you there to unmute. Okay. Good
Hi.
morning. Hi.
Good morning. Good noon from Iran. It's 12 here right now. And I would like to ask a question in general. We have, I have a lot of students who doesn't care and who don't love English language.
Yeah.
And they are forced to learn English language. What should I do in general? How can I teach them? How can I tell them that, okay, you're going to learn English language, and how can I teach them,
Firstly, I would sit with them and just share that you are sorry about the unfairness. So really sitting with them and saying, look, I'm sorry you don't want to be here. It's clear that, it's something that's being forced on you. And really recognizing the reality of the situation, being honest about it. I always say coaching is about the honesty card. And talk about them. How are you feeling about this? How does it make you feel that you're being forced? Once you've gone through that, then I would move into a conversation about motivation and trying to understand, okay, you don't want to be here, you don't want to do this, but just imagine you've got perfect English. How could that change your life? How could it open doors for you in the future? How could it help you with whatever you want to do in life? And try to see if they can connect with something real and personal for them that brings in the significance of learning it. That would be the first step. Now, if they say nothing at all, then I would go to the next honesty card, which is, okay, there's nothing, but you're being forced. We've got to be here. So how do we make the process enjoyable and not painful? And then you have to find out, how can we do this that's going to be enjoyable for you and for me, because we've got to be here. So I would take it in 2 steps, okay?
Yeah, thank you very much.
And bring out the honesty. Bring out the honesty. You know, many times as a teacher, we don't feel it's our place to bring that honesty out. If they don't want to be there, be honest and say, okay, I'm sorry about that. We've got to be here. So how do we deal with it? And open questions, you know, really getting them to share, how do we deal with this situation then?
Yeah.
How many students do you have in one class?
Actually, right now I have 5 to 7 for groups and 1 to 3 for private classes.
Right. Then I would really get that group together and say, okay, how do we make this more enjoyable? How can you connect as a team? How can you help each other? What can you do that it's less painful? And all these open questions.
Okay, thank you very much.
My pleasure, and good luck.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any other questions? And I think we've got the link in the chat box for the certificate, everybody. So if you are wanting the certificate, do go into the chat box for the link. Yes, Virginia, you will be speaking very soon at that conference. So definitely everybody look out for Virginia's talk at the Chinese Language Tutors Association conference. Yes, Suad, let me just unmute. There you go.
Hello all.
Hi.
Thank you for this blessed efforts. Thank you for this information, valuable information. It's really helpful. I want to give you like a situation in my classroom. I'm teaching elementary students, aged 9 and 12 years old. They're having like a phobia in test taking while sitting for the test. So they are acquiring everything in the new language, which is the English language, as a second language. Yet when we come for the test, they aren't able to apply what they learned, like changing the print. Like understanding the print and changing and applying their knowledge. So one more thing I want to add a note that I believe that we have to empathize with them, like what they are the users of our service. Like yes, we're teachers, but we're offering a service. And they are users of this service. So I believe that we have to match their needs, why they need the language, as you were saying.
That's right.
And when we make them feel comfortable, they're able, their brain actually is able to give a lot. But this is the phobia is from the test taking while taking a test.
Yes.
Plus one more thing before I give you the mic. I'm also a master's student, and also I'm preparing now for my thesis, which also and I'm aspiring to study about neurolanguage, how the impact of neurolanguage on elementary students. So if you advise me what title would I go for, how could I further my studies in this domain?
Well, maybe you and I can have a private conversation about that. So maybe drop me an email, or if you can, just put me your contact details.
Sure, I would be delighted.
Yeah.
Thank you a lot.
And we can connect about that.
Thank you.
Where are you located, Swad? Oh, I think you turned the microphone off there. Where are you located?
I'm in Lebanon.
Right. Okay.
You know that Lebanon is also running through difficult circumstances. Actually, like everywhere, we cannot stop at this. So we have to train them, and train ourselves to overcome obstacles.
Yeah. So can I ask you a couple of questions? The tests, are they in the school curricula?
No, that's the problem actually. So we have to follow regulations. There are standardized tests. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So, firstly, I totally agree with you. Kids at school, and I think each and every one of us shares that feeling of going for a test and blocking, all of us. One thing that I recommend is that we change the name and we call it review or consolidation. So we start moving away from the word test, exam. That's one of the first things I would say. Secondly, Swad, I would really sit with them and check in with them. What's happening to all of you when you go to this test? How are you all feeling? Can we talk about the brain? Can we talk about fight or flight? May I share with you, this is what's happening in the brain. This is shutting down. This is blocking. This is the reason. And then getting them to share, is this happening to you? Tell me about it. How are you feeling? What are you noticing physically? You know, when we go into fight or flight, we start shaking, breath is getting shorter, heartbeats going up, we start sweating. And then the question is, okay, what do you need in those moments to calm you down? And how can we as a class come into strategies to combat the fight or flight? And how can I help you as the teacher to build those strategies? Do we need to look at breathing techniques for you to then sit in the exam, think about me and breathe? Or how can we get you to understand more certainty about what's going to come into that consolidation so that you're not surprised when we get there? So maybe we need to go into some past papers, or we need to just rehearse, or we can just, you know, go into that situation of, okay, today we're going to do a consolidation. We're going to get you practicing for this. And we're going to get you ready for this. You know, it's that building resilience that kids need, and building up strategies to calm themselves down. And that, I think, is also an essential part of, if schools need to have exams and tests, we need to help kids to get through and understand how to take it from the brain perspective, and how to build in those strategies to combat that moment of fight or flight. So Swad, I would probably have a chat with your group, with your learners, and it doesn't matter what age they are. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds, 11-year-olds, we can talk to them about what's happening. Maybe if you've got 6, 7, 8-year-olds, very simple language. There is a foundation called Mind Up in the United States. And the founder is actually Goldie Hawn, the actress. And they also train teachers to talk about the brain with learners. And one thing that they do is they use puppets. And they use puppets. Maybe this puppet is the prefrontal cortex. This puppet is the emotional brain. And when the emotional brain kicks in, it's hitting the prefrontal cortex and saying, you're not going to work now. You're going to go to sleep because I'm in charge. You know, things like that, where you get little kids to really understand this is what happens. And we've had coaches with their children talking about fight or flight. And the coaches have shared with me afterwards, a little boy, 5-year-old, he was having panic attacks because they were moving to Japan. And the neurolanguage coach spoke with her little boy about, you know, what's happening and everything. And she said, you know, if this happens, come and find me and let's work through some strategies together. And he used to come to her and say, Mummy, Mummy, my brain's starting again. This little boy now is 8 or 9 years old and he still talks to his mummy about his brain. So he's fully conscious. Now, if we can create children today with metacognition, they are going to grow up into the most amazing adults on earth. I wish that I had understood about my brain throughout my life. It's only in the last 10 years that now I'm in charge of it. For the first 40-something years of my life, my brain was in charge of me. And Laura, I can see you smiling. And this is the case, you know, if we are helping kids from an early age to manage and control and understand their brains, wow. Wow. And that's what you are. You're the educators of today who are helping children to understand more. But that means we need to understand it first. And that's where we are with everything that we're doing in neurolanguage coaching. But Swad, you know, some weeks ago, I had a message from a school in Jamaica asking me to do some private workshops with them. So, you know, if your school is interested, we could look at doing maybe some online mini training for the teachers there. And also just to share with all of you, last month, we finally got the full constitution of the foundation. So we will be starting also to do things from the foundational perspective. So definitely we'll be starting to do more volunteer projects and more non-profit initiatives. So with pleasure, if any of you are with schools and you would like some sort of projects and workshops setting up, then with pleasure we can do. Okay, so Swad, do keep in touch. Did you put your, if you send me a private message here a minute with your contact details, Swad, or send me an email. Okay, let me just unmute you.
Okay, thank you a lot, Rachel. Thank you. That was really helpful. I'll keep in touch with you.
Yes, fantastic.
It's amazing. Fantastic. Thank you all.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions before we close? We've just received a nice juicy melon from Olivier. Thank you, Olivier. Any other questions or comments? And yes, people who are facing poverty, there's a lot of stress in the world at the moment, a lot. Even in countries where there shouldn't be stress, there is, unfortunately. Agnes, do you think that neurolanguage coaching works better with one-to-one or in small groups? You know, one-to-one is always going to be the creme de la creme, because you're literally learning how that person functions, learns, reacts, and you're helping them to learn about themselves. However, small groups can also work very well. I would say maximum 4. You still can maintain effectiveness, efficiency. Slightly different process, because you have to understand that the coaching conversation that we have with one is the same as with a group. But you as an educator have to consciously use that coaching conversation with a group as well, and know how to do that. Over 4, then it starts to get a little bit more tricky, because you're really dealing with different brains. You're dealing with brain diversity, neurodiversity. And there I would say it would need a little bit more time to understand them, maybe some questionnaires to find out a little bit more from them individually, maybe discovering what activities they like. And there it might be coming into a little bit of the multiple intelligences theories, Howard Gardner, to discover the different ways that people interpret information. You can do neurolanguage coaching with a group, but there have to be different techniques, like a group goal, a group mission, not individual goals. Otherwise, you'd go crazy as an educator. If you've got 30 people in a room and they've all got different goals, impossible. But if you can get them into a group goal and into being a team and helping each other, yes, then you've got them. Absolutely. I'm just coming back. Suad, I got the direct message, but I do need your email. If you can, just pop that to me as well. And Ajashi, you held it in August. You came in August. Okay, I'm not sure that we can go back to the last webinar to do that. Definitely from today's, yes, but I think from August, I'm not sure. I would need to check with Gary for that. And Laura, when you're doing a diagnostic with 4, I would get them asking themselves the questions. So you stop being the questioner and you probably say, and Laura, how about you find out from Ina about her holiday last year? Or how about you ask Olivier what he's going to be doing over the next few weeks? What plans does he have? So you get them to question, and then you start listening to all of them. You make general notes of what you're hearing. And then afterwards, you ask each of them, how did you feel? What did you notice? Yeah. And then you gather the list of areas from all of them and from your observations in general. And you're not pinpointing, this was your mistake, that was your mistake. No, you make it a general group list. Absolutely. Okay, so I'm just making a note of the email there. Okay, fine. And just coming back. And Elsa has once again put the certificate there in the chat box. Right, everybody, thank you so much. We've been together for an hour and a half. Thank you for being here. Absolutely. I know it's Saturday morning, so I'm so grateful to you, and a special grateful to Virginia for being here at 3:30 in the morning. I love you so much. Absolutely. We do have another webinar next week, and this is going to be one that all of you asked me for. And it's about pronunciation and troubleshooting. Okay, so that's where we're going to go next week. Pronunciation and troubleshooting in the neurolanguage coaching context. How do we deal with that? Okay, and probably what I'll do is pronunciation, plus we'll go into difficult topics. We'll go into a little bit about beginners, advanced. We'll go into a little bit about different languages. We'll go into a little bit about maybe children, teenagers, adults, differences there. So we'll have like an eclectic webinar discussion where we're all coming together and tackling those topics. Thank you, everybody. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of the weekend and hope to see you next week. Bye. Bye.